Imagine stepping into a dimly lit Florida eatery in 1925 and hearing your own name whispered from an empty corner. In that year alone, more than 12,000 curious souls paid a modest dollar just to witness shadowy figures drifting between candlelit tables, yet many never left with their nerves intact. They called it the Haunted Lantern, a roadside restaurant plastered with cobwebs, rattling silverware, and phantom footsteps echoing across worn wooden floors. But what if those ghosts weren't supernatural at all? What if every chilling creak and sudden breath of cold air was a carefully staged trick meant to distract you from an even darker reality? Tonight, we peel back the velvet curtain to expose the trading center hidden in plain sight, a roaring underground network of alcohol smugglers and illegal bookmakers who use the haunting spectacle as their perfect smokescreen. Was the restaurant truly haunted, or was it one of the most audacious cons in Florida's history? By the end of this film, you'll walk through the abandoned dining hall with us, piece together hidden clues scrawled on peeling walls, and meet the gang whose criminal empire thrived in the shadows. Stay tuned, because this is the inside story of the gang behind the haunted restaurant. And trust me, nothing about this ghost story is what it seems. Prepare for chills and thrills beyond your imagination. Now that we've glimpsed the chilling facade of the Haunted Lantern, let's wind the clock back to Florida in the Roaring '20s. When Prohibition had just taken hold, jazz bands filled every speakeasy, and dreamers chased fortune under sweltering sun. In 1923, the sleepy coastal town of Clearwater Springs was little more than fishing piers, tangle of mangroves, and a smattering of roadside diners. Newspapers boasted headlines like "Sunburned tourists flock here for salt air and sea breezes," but beneath the postcard-perfect exterior, an illicit economy was bubbling to life. Picture this. Daily life revolved around morning catches of grouper and shrimp, local gossip over steaming cups of chicory coffee, and hurried whispers about rum row ships lurking just beyond the breakers. Enter Lorenzo "Lucky Lou" Marconi, a gaunt war veteran with a crooked grin who spotted opportunity in every prohibitionist loophole. Lou leased an abandoned seafood hall on the edge of town, slapped a coat of eerie green paint on its weathered boards, and hung tattered drapes to look like spiderwebs. Within weeks, the Haunted Lantern advertised nightly paranormal reenactments, charging $1 a head for tickets. Tourists arrived in Model Ts, cameras swinging from their necks, eager for thrills. They snapped sepia-tinted photographs of dusty candle sconces and grainy film reels of ghostly silhouettes flitting behind stained glass windows. One particularly grainy snapshot, later found in the Clearwater Historical Society archives, shows what appears to be a transparent figure slumped across a booth, lantern light haloing its form. Local waitress Rosie Jenkins swore she saw that same figure glide past her tray more times than she could count. Rosie, by the way, was known for dropping half a dozen martinis on a good night, so her ghost stories carried just the right amount of credibility. Behind the scenes, however, Lou's spirited customers were funneled through back doors into hidden chambers. There, Thomas "Echo" Delgado, former rum runner turned bookie, took bets on everything from phantom sightings to poker hands, while barrels of moonshine changed hands beneath tables stacked with tattered Ouija boards. The flickering candles and creaking doors were all by design, every scream of surprise distracted from the clink of ledgers and the rustle of dollar bills. Amid uproarious laughter and staged spirit attacks, the real business thrived. Local sheriff's reports mentioned nothing more scandalous than rowdy tourists and minor disturbances, leaving Lou's ring undisturbed for years. Yet even his boldest gamblers didn't suspect the full extent of the smuggling routes branching through the Everglades, nor the international network of syndicates financing it. But beneath the veneer of haunted theatrics lay a more audacious plot, one that would shake Clearwater Springs to its core. However, the truth behind all this is far stranger than any ghost story, and now it's time to uncover exactly how the Haunted Lantern turned fear into profit. Now let's step beyond the lantern's glow and unravel the strange occurrences that kept guests on edge and lured them deeper into Lou Marconi's elaborate game. Clue A: The Disappearing Diner. Let's rewind to a humid July evening in 1925. A buttoned-up insurance agent named Harold Finch sat alone at a corner table, finishing a bowl of oyster stew. At precisely 9:17 p.m., witnesses say, Finch rose to fetch his check and simply vanished. His coat remained draped over the chair, a half-filled glass of moonshine still sweating in the mug, and the tip jar, once jingling with silver, sat empty. No scream, no struggle, just an empty chair under a swaying lantern. When the morning sun spilled through cracked windows, staff discovered Finch's leather-bound ledger tucked beneath the floorboards, pages meticulously listing every smuggler's route and weekly betting odds. No body, no clues, only that ledger as if shouting, "Follow the money." You'd think in a place advertised as haunted you'd at least find a ghost, right? But here the real vanishing act was far more unsettling. Clue B, the ashen symbols. Fast forward. 2 nights later. The kitchen crew spotted mysterious glyphs traced in wood ash across the back hallway. The shapes resembled distorted gamblers' cards, spades turned into question marks, hearts bleeding into spidery loops. Local folklore pointed to Cuban rum runners who used such symbols to mark safe drop points in Havana's backstreets. In Clearwater Springs, they read like a cryptic invitation. The next game starts after midnight. One stray symbol, the perfect circle with an X, was found scrawled on the bottom of a wine barrel. No one dared turn that barrel over, but every time a curious soul peered inside, they swore they heard faint clinks of coins and a muffled voice saying, "Bet on red." It was almost poetic. The same ash used to light candles now inscribed the secret code of Lou's underground empire. Clue C, phantom footsteps in the alley. Then came the racket in the alley behind the restaurant. Patrons racing for late-night jitneys reported hearing horse hoof echoes clattering across cobblestones, yet the only vehicles around were Model Ts. One night, a local reporter named Scoop Malone crept out for a closer listen. He claimed to see prints, tiny wagon wheel grooves pressed into the mud, and a faded horseshoe nailed to a post, its ironwork etched with the initials TD. That's Thomas Delgado's hallmark. Scoop tried to snap a photo, but his bulky camera jammed, leaving only a half-exposed plate showing a ghostly blur retreating into darkness. It made you wonder, was Delgado executing secret deliveries under the cover of a haunting? Or did someone really harness phantom horses to spirit contraband through hidden tunnels? Clue D, the looping film. Perhaps the strangest evidence surfaced in the projection room above the main hall. Visitors paid extra to watch flickering reels of staged apparitions drifting across the dining floor. But attentive viewers noticed the same shadowed figure gliding by the chandelier over and over like a looping animation. Investigators later uncovered a crudely spliced film reel, 2 minutes shot on repeat, meant to amplify fear and distract from the backroom poker games. One reel even showed a candle flame flicker inconsistently, betraying the cut at frame 27. Everyday moviegoers missed it, but a projectionist with an eye for detail recognized sabotage. He pocketed the reel, later selling it to a New York tabloid for a small fortune. Between the vanished banker, the cryptic ash code, phantom hooves, and doctored film loops, the tapestry of Lou Marconi's illusion grew impossibly intricate. Each clue, when viewed alone, might be dismissed as local lore or a hungry reporter's embellishment. But woven together, they formed a pattern. Lou and Delgado engineered every creak, every whisper, every scream to mask their smuggling routes and betting ledgers. Yet the most chilling question remains, who or what truly orchestrated the greatest disappearing act in Clearwater Springs? Was it a clever criminal mastermind with an eye for theatrics, or did Lou Marconi stumble onto something far more sinister? Were some patrons too frightened to cooperate, or too compromised by their own bets and secrets to come forward? As the night wore on and the last lanterns guttered out, guests left with more questions than answers. Footage loops, ash symbols, phantom hooves, and missing bodies. Each clue begs one core question: what lengths will people go to hide the truth behind a ghost story? It's time to step behind the phantoms and interrogate the evidence, weighing ghost stories against cold, hard facts. We begin by examining official archives and contemporary records to see where the legends diverge from reality. Archive interpretation. Scrolling through microfilm of the Clearwater Springs Chronicle, we find dispatches from Sheriff Harper reporting inexplicable disturbances, but never mentioning missing persons or large-scale smuggling. Instead, ledger entries in the courthouse vault reveal 26 sealed warrants for liquor possession, each mysteriously withdrawn before trial, often at the personal request of a Mr. L. Marconi. Even Prohibition agents noted that the Haunted Lantern consistently escaped raids. A ledger page from 1924 lists Haunted Dinner, 1,200 guests, next to Moonshine Barrels, 48. It seems every spectral scream conveniently drowned out the rattling of iron shackles on contraband casks. When we compare Lou's tax filings, he paid barely $50 in income tax that year despite claiming $3,000 in ticket sales. It's clear someone was cooking the books more thoroughly than any ghost could. Expert interviews. We reached out to Dr. Elise Carmichael, a seasoned crime historian at the University of Tampa. She points out that stage magicians of the era used similar techniques to misdirect audiences, often employing looped reels and trap doors. Marconi repurposed theatrical gimmicks for bootlegging, she explains. It's brilliant and almost admirable in its efficiency, if it weren't so illegal. Meanwhile, film archivist Ramon Delgado, no relation to Thomas Echo, studied the recovered reels and confirmed they were spliced from at least 3 separate shoots, some cut so poorly that the silver gelatin emulsion peeled away, another clue that the hauntings were less paranormal phenomenon, more opportunistic hoax. Yet, he adds with a smirk, no amount of film analysis can explain why the ghost lights sometimes followed staff down the corridor, unless those staff were in on the con. Analysis of folk rumors. Local lore adds color to the official record. Grandmother Agnes Blackwood swears the building was cursed by a Seminole shaman after land was stolen to build the restaurant. She describes midnight chants that sounded like water bubbling through moss, followed by drifting lights in the swamp. Others recall Delgado's cousin, a self-taught electrician, rigging concealed wiring behind walls to mimic floating lanterns. Some propose a hybrid theory. Lou bribed Seminole mystics to lend credibility to his haunt, using electrical wires disguised as vines. Whether these rumors hold a grain of truth or just satisfy our human appetite for mystery, they underscore how rapidly fiction and fact intertwined at the Haunted Lantern. Hypothetical dramatic scenes. Picture Lou and Delgado huddled behind stacked barrels, stealthily adjusting a pulley that dropped spectral drapes from the rafters. Imagine the distant drip of moonshine into waiting jars, synchronized with a flute player upstairs to mask the racket of hidden roulette wheels. If it was a ghost, why did it never appear on nights when the backroom games were closed? And why did the specters grow bolder whenever lawmen drew near, only to vanish like cheap stage smoke once the coast was clear? Comprehensive inference and open ending. Putting it all together, we see a layered operation: theatrical effects borrowed from vaudeville, low-tech film editing, discreet co-option of local folklore, and a smuggling network threading through the swamps. The mainstream explanation holds that the Haunted Lantern was nothing more than one of the era's most elaborate speakeasies, cloaking illicit trade behind phony hauntings. Conspiracy theorists insist on a darker force. Some even claim genuine supernatural energies were harnessed by the gang to terrify rivals into submission. But the records suggest a more human culprit: calculated deception, audacious enough to fool thousands. Still, unanswered questions remain. Who burned the original film prints? Did any patrons leave behind diaries locked in private collections? And could some spirits of wrongdoing truly linger in those walls? Whether you favor the historian's ledger or the storyteller's whisper, one fact stands: the legend of the Haunted Lantern endures because it blends fear, greed, and ingenuity in a single, unforgettable con. And as long as its doors remain shuttered, those ghosts, real or imagined, will keep whispering secrets to the curious. Here's what we discovered. Beneath the flickering lanterns and ghostly whispers lay looped film reels, ash-scrawled symbols, and a ledger that tracked every drop of moonshine and every bet placed in the shadows. The Haunted Lantern was less haunted house than ingenious Speakeasy, where Marconi and Delgado staged spectral theatrics to distract lawmen from smuggling routes that snaked through the Everglades. In just 2 months, Marconi's ghostly gimmicks netted him more revenue than any local fisherman pulled from the Gulf, proof that sometimes the brightest illusions cast the darkest shadows. Yet even the most thorough charade can't fully dim the shadows of the past. Rumors of lost diaries and burned reels remind us that some stories are written in smoke and secrecy, waiting to be reclaimed. Perhaps a bold historian or curious urban explorer will pry open those shuttered doors and set the record straight, if they dare. If you've been intrigued by the ghosts of Clearwater Springs and hungry for more forgotten mysteries, smash that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your theories in the comments. What part of the Haunted Lantern's legend fascinates you most? Stay tuned, because next week we're unearthing the missing tickets beneath the railroad bed in the western United States. Until then, keep your flashlights handy and your skepticism sharper than ever.